Hey everyone, this is DJ David coming to you, and I'm live right now. And I know last night about 8 o'clock, I was going to do a live broadcast and bring lots of people in, or I hope to bring lots of people in. Well, that did not get to happen because I had a little bit of a situation come up that I needed to take care of, and that took precedence over me being on YouTube. What I have found is there's a lots of free music out there that you can use on YouTube that has no copyright infringement. And that's what we're playing now. But talking about that, let's talk about why sometimes people during the 60s, 70s, and 80s would call into their favorite radio station and request a song and the problems they had because when they requested the song, the radio station could not play that song. No matter how popular it may be other ways or otherwhere, they could not play that song. And it's based upon what's called right now the copyright infringement. Means the radio station had to give permission each time a record is made. It is made for a certain type of genre of people. It's made for a certain audience. And the records then would go out to the stations that had that. And along with the record going out to the station came permission to use it on the stations. Not every radio station received this. Give you an example. The network of CBS or Capitol Records may send out the songs that came into them to certain radio stations. And these radio stations, they could play these songs because uh, Columbia, Motown, and all these other radio stations that's affiliated with them, they could play this music. But others could not. I mean, you know that you don't go to a country uh, venue radio station and request a hard rock, they're not going to have it. They're not going to do it. But by the same token, you can't go to a jazz radio station that's playing primarily jazz and ask for blues to be played. That's the same way. The same thing as Motown. You can't go to it and actually play something that is disco or mellow, that is something else out of what Motown is producing at the time. Because Motown had their radio stations where they sent the records to, and those radio stations are the only ones that could play it. Otherwise, it becomes copyright infringement. Now, the stations that don't get it, they can take and ask for the right. They have to go to the production company and ask for the right to play that record, just like you do here on YouTube. And it's for the protection of the singer and the songwriter and the people that made that, because they get paid a certain amount of royalty for each song that's played. The other day, I wanted to take and put out a song out here, and it was called Daisy Bell. Now, I'm not going to go into the full thing about Daisy Bell because there are certain copyright infringements there, and I realize that. But there's been some singers recently to reproduce that song, and it's going out, and those singers and producers, they have a right because they applied for the copyright of this to play this. And just because I pull up an old song of it doesn't mean that I had the right to play that song because it is copyright infringement. The singer that did this song, did a remake of it, they now had the right to that, and they hold a copyright to it. I can't say the name of the person that has the copyright. I can tell you the name is called Daisy Bell, but that's about all I can say. But that's the reason why some of you can pull up one song. Let's say everybody's pulling up Bee Gees, and they like that song Bee Gees, Staying Alive. And sometimes it gets blocked and sometimes it doesn't. That's because in certain venues, you crossing over into what's called a copyright infringement. That production company has a right to that. And if you cross over into what that production company is doing, then they have a right to block you. That's their infringement that you're crossing into. And they may have what's called paid endorsements on that song. You can't do that. But then you go to another venue of the same song, Staying Alive, and you say, well, I can put it there. Because the production company is offering it free for you to use, you still gotta have a copyright permission. And part of that copyright is announcing and saying who it is or where you got it from and all these things. You cross this, do this, and it may be okay then to play it. Sometimes that's all it takes to say, okay, you can play a song. But for the radio stations, they could not do that. They are a public trust entity. What they play, they list with the FCC, this is the type of music they're going to play. And they can't vary from that. You ever listen to your TV station? And sometimes there's a weather report or a commercial comes on about the news station and stuff like that, because there's a certain law that the FCC puts out that says every so often that station has to make an announcement of who they are and their channels. That's why they do it. It's not to be irritating to you. They need to do that. The only time they can break that is when there's a national alert going on, like a hurricane or a tornado or weather event or something like that going on. They don't have to do that. But then at the bottom of the screen, you see scrolling the station that's carrying this. They do that so you know that that's there. But that's the only exception. Lots of people don't realize that radio was very, very narrowly focused on certain things. And some radio stations had a broader audience, and so they had a broader platform. It's like the pop and rock scene, okay? They could cross over to the disco, a little bit of Motel. They can cross over to a little bit of blues, a little bit of jazz, back and forth, because they had a broader aspect of their production. And that's what radio did. Now, the DJs, some DJs may prefer not to go that way, and they had a right to do that. But the DJs then would be limited to certain hours that they would play. Let's take the wake up morning hour. Now, lots of people like to listen to it, but they like to listen to certain songs. And because they listen to certain songs, those DJs were given certain leeways to what they would play. And the DJs would sit there and they would actually play record after record. They'd have one record ready to go one after another. They still had to abide by the FCC rules. Every so often, they had to say who they are and what radio station they were in. That's just common practice that they had to do. And that's something that lots of people fail to realize, that the rules, even here on YouTube, are the same. There's copyright infringement. There's also FCC rules. They bypass that by being part of the internet. But some of the things that you do, and you go to broadcasting, it's going into the FCC rules, and YouTube has to pull you back and say, no, you can't do that. And so, like, if I was to bring a bunch of DJs on here and we go for a 24-hour period and we're playing one free music after another, we're crossing into the free radio air and FCC rules, and YouTube will shut us down in a heartbeat. You just can't do that because you can't be a free radio station for all the world to see. That's why they got podcasts and stuff like that. Even then, they got limitations what you can do. But you have to realize that everything that all these radio stations did, it was for the protection of the singer, the songwriter, and the production company. It's all about them because they had to make their money. If they didn't, I mean, what's the use of even making a song? Back in the 50s and the 60s, a little 45 was record held a single song on one side and another song on the flip side. And that's the way it came to the radio station. But those records were selling anywhere from 25 cents to 50 cents a piece. Do you realize how many of those they had to sell in for the songwriter, the singer, and production company made any money? There's a certain song that came out a while during the 60s and 70s, I think it was. Well, let's go back to the early 60s. One of Elvis Presley's songs, Crying in the Chapel. He took and he came out with a 45 on that. For him to go golden record for Crying in the Chapel was a big deal. You know, the golden record, sell 1 million record. Well, you have to realize that at the time, Crying in the Chapel by Elvis Presley was selling for only 75 cents a record. The sale of 1 million means that there was $750,000 there that had to be divided by 3 people: the songwriter, the singer Elvis Presley, and the production company, the producer. They're the ones that had to divide that up. How that divided up, that's between them. That's a contractual agreement. I don't know anything about that. That's between them. They're very private. But $750,000 for one song off of 45, selling at 75 cents, and they sell a golden record 1 million. But not every song makes a golden record or sells 1 million. It's good when it goes platinum because it's sold well over that. That comes later on. Just to make a golden record was a fantastic thing, and more golden records you had out there, the better you were. But the copyright issue isn't really an issue. It's about the integrity of what we're doing. And radio DJs, they knew this. That's why when you called in and requested a song, regardless of how much you wanted it played or how many calls they got, it could not be played. I'm going to take you back to Hank Williams in 1955 and the song Lovesick Blues. It came out primarily as a country song. And when it came out, Lovesick Blues, everybody loved it. And all these radio stations, they had one way of playing it, had to go, in order to play that song, they had to go in and get permission and pay a royalty to Hank Williams' production company, Fred Rose, I think it was, and all these different people in order to play that. And they did that. That's how come when Billboard said that, it made a crossover into all venues. That means everybody came in and bought that record, paid for the right to play it on the radio station. That's why it was such a big deal. What makes it even bigger, that it went for over a year. I think it was something like I know it was over a year. Lots of people say it was 52 weeks. Some people say it was 56 weeks. Some people say it was over 60 weeks. But even today, for any song to last that long in all venues is unheard of. But yet, that song did, and it crossed. But in order for it to cross, every radio station that was not set to play that song had to buy the record and then buy the right to play it. And that's what they all had to do. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. Now, the country stations that was assigned to picking up the song Lovesick Blues by Hank Williams, they got to play it without any problem. But the others did not. They all had it. And this is part of the copyright infringement and copyright rules. Even though Hank Williams was dead, the money was going to his family and the production company and to charitable organizations and things like that. So they made money all the way around for all these different things. You have to realize that radio stations didn't just have free will to do what they wanted to. Sometimes they couldn't do what you requested. And so many people would get mad and say, I'm never going to listen to it again. Now, one time I talked about the morning rush hour on the radio and how they played a limited song. They would kind of varied a little bit, but they played according to the rush hour. Now, coming home in the evening rush hour, coming home music, usually you would hear somebody like Wolfman Jack on there broadcasting all the way around. Casey Kasem was real good up north about broadcasting, and he was limited too with what he could do. But the limitations, what they could do, seemed to broaden just a little bit, as long as they give a little bit of a history and platform to it. I love to listen to Wolfman Jack, and some of them was syndicated to where they went into all the radio stations. That's the reason why they would give it a little bit wider venue of what they could play. I mean, that was the lure of the afternoon from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock when rush hours of people going home in the evening. And that's 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock in each time zone. So that DJ could be on there from 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the eastern coast. At 6 o'clock they cut it off, but then 4 o'clock on the west coast would go on until 6 o'clock there. And that's the reason why lots of DJs, they broadcast out of LA. They get a longer time, bigger sponsors, more money they can make. But anyway, I'm going to schedule another day. I have to sit down and figure out when I'm going to do that. And I'm glad for YouTube. They answered my question. I put out there, I wanted some free music that I could play and put out here so that people could listen and enjoy this. And that's what they've done. And you can find them too. There are venues for lots of free music out there. And YouTube is willing to let you know them, download them, and play them. Just subscribe to the YouTube music channel and you can get these. But please subscribe to the YouTube music channel because it makes it easier for them to do this for you. Anyway, this DJ David saying, y'all have a good one. And it's getting close to that rush hour traffic type of time and getting close to me to go have something to eat, drink my tea. And like I said, I'll be posting when our next time is going to be here. And I hope I get some response from today's DJs about what it's like now. I would love to hear from you. And from the old DJs from back in then, the different things and the troubles they had and what they really enjoyed doing. Anyway, this is DJ David coming to you. Y'all have a good one. Have a happy COVID day. Bye-bye.